Hi there, it's Llarold. Today I'm going to be taking a look at all 6 tank class set bonuses from Tier 21, Antorus the Burning Throne. The instance isn't out yet, and everything could change, although that's true even once it is out. But it's important to have a good idea what's good and bad right now, so that we can hopefully have an accurate expectation of which classes will be performing well in the next tier, and so that we can let Blizzard know how we feel about the classes that look like they're not going to do so well next tier. So let's start with Death Knight. The 2-piece blood bonus is a little up and down. When you're tanking an AoE, it's great. That's going to make this bonus amazing in Mythic Plus, which if you watch the Mythic Dungeon Invitational, you know that blood DKs are already doing work in Mythic Plus. In raids where you're tanking a single boss, or worse yet, taunting a boss back and forth with another tank, it's pretty mediocre. Worst of all, it does literally nothing against caster mobs. Dancing Rune Weapon is the closest thing that Death Knights have to a base offensive cooldown, so it is a pretty good skill to shorten the cooldown on, and it is consistent that being hit by auto attacks shortens the cooldown of a skill that grants you parry chance. It's just not as big of a deal defensively as it would be to shorten the cooldown of Vampiric Blood or Icebound Fortitude. Basically, this bonus can range anywhere from useless to great. The 4-piece bonus has a really nice synergy with the 2-piece. How good it actually is boils down to how much the 2-piece actually reduces Dancing Rune Weapon's cooldown. So like that bonus, it's going to be better the more enemies you're tanking at a time. Generally speaking, it's a good bonus. Adding extra value after a cooldown ends can be touchy, but the way that this is implemented is pretty nice, and just like Dancing Rune Weapon, it's offensive and defensive at the same time. Let's move on to Demon Hunter. Demon Spikes grants you 20% parry for 6 seconds, and Defensive Spikes in the artifact tree increases that to 30% for the first 3 seconds. This bonus adds another 5% to the whole Fandango, which isn't huge, but it is more of what you want to see when you use Demon Spikes. This bonus is okay. Metamorphosis is a really powerful cooldown, and the 4-piece bonus can synergize pretty well with the 2-piece. Generally speaking, this kind of cooldown reduction bonus on a big defensive cooldown isn't really that awe-inspiring, so I guess be on the lookout for situations where you need this bonus to make it through the entire fight alive, but otherwise, it's kind of meh. The big problem with this kind of set bonus is that you need to have Metamorphosis already on cooldown for it to have any effect. Metamorphosis has some offensive value, but it's not like tanks immediately pop their cooldowns the moment they get into combat. That's just not how defensive cooldowns work. And strangely, this is another set where the bonuses do a lot more in Mythic Plus than they do in raids. Go figure. Let's jump along to Druid. Gore is the Guardian passive that basically gives you a 20% chance to reset the cooldown of Mangle whenever you use one of your offensive abilities that isn't Mangle. It also makes your Mangle generate 4 extra rage, but yeah, whatever. With artifact traits, Barkskin has a base cooldown of roughly 80 seconds, so with how often Gore procs, this will definitely add up to a lot of damage reduction. It suffers from the same problem as the Demon Hunter set of being essentially worthless if Barkskin isn't already on cooldown, but thankfully it doesn't vary with what kind of content you're doing, or get worse when you're not actively tanking a boss. So that's a pretty big checkmark in its favor. This bonus is a-okay. The 4-piece bonus has great synergy with the 2-piece bonus, and it is a really good bonus in its own right. There's really not a lot more to say about this though. It's good and it makes Barkskin and the 2-piece bonus better. It's good. Let's roll on over to Monk. The Monk 2-piece bonus is super complicated, so let me start by saying it's freaking terrible, and then work backwards to why it's actually bad. Elusive Brawler is the Brewmaster Mastery. You generate stacks of it by either being hit by auto attacks, hitting enemies with Blackout Strike, or hitting enemies with Breath of Fire. With normal amounts of gear, Elusive Brawler grants about 25 to 30% dodge chance per stack. This is in addition to the base dodge chance of around 20% and the 10% dodge you gain for 4.5 seconds from Brew Stash whenever you drink a brew. So with 1 stack, you're at 55 to 60% dodge chance. At 2 stacks, you're at 80 to 90% dodge chance, and at 3 stacks, you're above 100% dodge chance. Pretty much no question. Since Elusive Brawler only grants you dodge for the next melee swing that comes at you, and is completely consumed when you dodge, going above 3 stacks is basically worthless. Without the bonus, Breath of Fire generates 1 stack of Elusive Brawler for every target you hit, and with the bonus it's 2 stacks for every target. So if you're Breath of Firing 2 targets, you're already generating 4 stacks of Elusive Brawler, and thus wasting Elusive Brawler stacks. For every target passed to, it basically has 0 effect. Having 400% dodge chance for 1 melee swing is dumb. Either you dodge or you don't. For single target, this bonus does increase your dodge chance, but it's still potentially very wasteful. If you cast Breath of Fire when you already have stacks of Elusive Brawler, boom, wasted. The only way to compensate for this bonus as it currently stands is to drop as much mastery as you possibly can, so that you're instead around 20% dodge chance per stack of Elusive Brawler. In that case, the waste would come in around 4 stacks instead of 3. I wish this bonus were good, because it's clearly a good job of trying to think outside the box by the person who made it. The problem is really just the way that Brewmaster Mastery actually works. But in the end, this is a bonus that's intended to amplify the way your mastery works, and the way it accomplishes that is by making it your worst stat. It's rough. If the last bonus was bad, and it is, this one is worse. Currently, Brewmasters prefer to wear the Legendary Shoulders, which grant a second charge to Keg Smash and make it deal 25% more damage, and the Legendary Chest, which makes Keg Smash instantly reset the cooldown of Breath of Fire. This gives a lot of freedom and flexibility to the rotation while still making it feel really tight and responsive. I think it's fair of Blizzard to assume that not every Brewmaster on the planet will have all 13 legendaries available to them, but given that Antorus is supposed to be the last tier of Legion, it's a pretty weird move on their part to try and make a bonus that steps on the toes of what has been the best and most consistent Brewmaster legendary for the entire expansion. Brewmasters have a really smooth, controlled rotation, so to give Breath of Fire a 25% chance to reset when you dodge is really weird. It doesn't really make any kind of sense considering that they've spent the last couple of balancing patches trying to make Rushing Jadewind better than Special Delivery, and they actually succeeded, to then give us a set bonus that's going to compete with Rushing Jadewind for globals and basically make it worse again. On top of the RNG, the inconsistency of the procs, and so on, this bonus is also totally worthless if you're not actively tanking. So, say it with me now. It's better in Mythic Plus than it is in Raids. Now let's head on over to Paladin. Their 2-piece bonus is almost mind-blowing in its simplicity, especially after spending all that time thinking about monk set bonuses and how complex and weird they are. The Pally 2-piece, you get 10% block chance. Ta-da! It's not bad, especially considering that you can spec into Holy Shield in order to block spell damage. You have to give up Blessed Hammer or wear the Pally Legendary Ring Soul of the High Lord in order to do that, so I don't see it being a super popular choice, but it could have some value on the right fights in Antorus. This bonus is decent. It's not great, but it's not bad either. The 4-piece seems complicated, but it's really just about as simple. You get another 10% block chance unless you have Shield of the Righteous active. Putting in that caveat feels a little weird. The 2-piece gives 10% block chance. The 4-piece gives another 10% block chance, which is already a little bit diminished in its damage reduction, and then it only counts when you're not using Shield of the Righteous. You know, when you probably need that damage reduction the most. The bonus is still decent though, and it will help smooth out damage intake for protection paladins, but it's not great. Rather than say the obvious thing, let's try something different. Do you think this bonus will be better in Mythic Plus than in Raids? Let us know, yes you do, or yes you do in the comments section below. Finally, let's heroic leap our way on over to Warrior. The Warrior 2-piece bonus was changed recently. Before, it made Demoralizing Shout increase the duration of your next shield block by 6 seconds. That had a really amazing synergy with Thunder God's Vigor, which is part of the Prot Warrior Legendary trifecta, and it was maybe too good. This new bonus is by far the strongest offensive gain of any of the Tier 21 tank set bonuses. And if you are talented into heavy repercussions, it can actually be more of a shield block increase than the old bonus was. Now, lest you think that this is a bonus that forces you to switch to a suboptimal talent like the unfortunate Brewmaster 4-piece, it's not. Because this adds a bunch of rage generation onto Battle Cry, it actually does synergize pretty masterfully with anger management as well. This is a pretty tremendous DPS and defensive bonus, and I love it. If you overlap Battle Cry and Demoralizing Shout in order to get the 50% rage generation increase from the Might of the Vrykul artifact trait, it's worth 5 30 rage shield slams. So basically 150 rage in 6 seconds. That is pretty impressive. It's particularly good in single target more than it is in AoE, and so I have the proud distinction of being able to say this for the first time this video. This is a raid set bonus that's actually better in raids than it is in Mythic Plus. We found one! There has been some discussion about haste breakpoints and how that would work out, but as it turns out, it's actually really simple. To fit 5 shield slams into a single battle cry, you need 25% haste. To fit 6 shield slams, you need 50% haste. That's basically unreachable unless you have Bloodlust or Heroism going, so just keep shooting past 25% haste, which you should be doing anyways. The 4-piece bonus casts an Ignore Pain worth 10 rage every time you block while Ignore Pain is active. The knee-jerk reaction I've mostly seen is, what good is a free tiny Ignore Pain when Ignore Pain gets eaten up with every single melee swing? But that's not really true. Logs from Warriors tanking Mythic Tomb of Sargeras show pretty convincingly that Ignore Pain can be maintained through raid boss auto attacks. And it's important to remember that Warriors block a lot. On fights where you taunt a boss back and forth with the other tank and you're able to let shield block recharge while you're not actively tanking, Warriors can regularly block 90% or more of auto attacks that actually land on them. That's pretty enormous, and this bonus stands to be an enormous amount of healing as a result. It does suffer from having to maintain shield block and Ignore Pain at the same time, so it isn't perfect. And it is also worthless against pure caster mobs. But hopefully there aren't any pure caster bosses in Antorus. Overall, it synergizes well with the 2-piece and its interaction with heavy repercussions, so definitely look for that to be a competitive talent setup for progression rating Protection Warriors next tier. So now that each of the classes is covered, who actually has the best and worst bonuses coming up in Antorus? It seems pretty clear right now that Brewmasters have the worst bonuses by a large margin. At this point, I would even say don't wear Brewmaster Tier 21 unless they're your highest item level pieces. That's how bad the bonuses are. It's a shame that they are taking such a massive step backwards considering how great Brewmaster Tomb of Sargeras tier bonuses were. And I think at this point we can really just hope that they get a complete overhaul between now and the release of Antorus. If I have to give it a letter grade, I would say Brewmaster gets an F-. Real disappointing. Vengeance Demon Hunters and Protection Paladins don't really have great game-changing bonuses either, but they are at least a noticeable step up from Brewmaster. If I were giving them a letter grade, I'd say C+. Blood DKs clock in at the number 3 spot. When their 2-piece bonus works well, it's really good, and the synergy with the 4-piece is dynamite. Unfortunately, it is unreliable, and that's kind of a big problem. I like Blood, and I think they're going to work pretty well in Antorus, but I don't think they're ready to leap their way right up to first place just yet. B+. Guardian Druids are next up on the ladder, I feel. Resetting the cooldown of Barkskin is okay. It's really not that impressive, but because it works based on gore resetting Mangle instead of having to actively tank a boss, it is very reliable. Reliability is one of the most important traits for tanks to have, especially when it comes to their cooldowns. The 4-piece bonus is good too, but not a total game changer. Druids will still be great tanks in Antorus, I don't really think there's any question of that. I'm gonna say B+ on this as well, but a ever so slightly better B+ than Blood. Like scoring an 89 instead of an 88. Finally, and in first place, it's Protection Warriors. Their new 2-piece generates a ton of rage, and turns Battlecry from an awesome offensive cooldown into an awesome everything cooldown. The 4-piece stands to provide a pretty massive amount of healing as well, and both of their bonuses are stronger against 1 or 2 raid bosses than they are against a huge pack of Mythic Plus mobs. The bonuses do favor heavy repercussions a bit for early progression, but the synergy of the 2-piece and anger management is still extremely good. These bonuses should hopefully help shore up some of the shortcomings that have plagued Protection Warrior in the Nighthold and Tomb of Sargeras. I give it an A. I think that about covers it. This was a longer video than usual, and I appreciate you sticking with me to the end. If you have any questions or comments, or just want to say that a set bonus may be better for tanking Mythic Plus than raids, hit up the comments section. If you're feeling generous, throw us a like and a subscribe. It makes us feel great, and I bet it'll do the same for you. Thanks for watching. Bye.